back, as we know, over the weekend, the Army celebrated 250 years. And of course, it was commemorated with an amazing parade in Washington, D.C. And I'm so honored to have with us today Douglas Ernest. He's the author of the, quote, Spirit of the True Patriot, the inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest. He's a U.S. Army war veteran, entrepreneur, and an owner of a very successful Corvette dealership in Dallas, Texas. Wow, that's kind of interesting. Check out his website, Douglas Ernest, ERNEST.com, and there's the picture of the landing page right there. You can check that out as well. Captain, good to see you, friend. How are you?
Doing great, Perry. Thanks for having me on the show this morning to voice my perspective. What's going on around the world?
You're the man. You're the man.
Thank you.
Did you take a vet out for a spin before you come on the show this morning?
I sure did. My 2-year-old son was climbing in and out of the car, so I had to take him around the block real quick before I went to work.
That's good stuff. Good to see you. Thanks for thanks for your time. Thank you for your service. A lot to talk about. What did you think of the parade Saturday?
Awesome. I had talked to several of my fellow colleagues that are veterans, and everybody was very inspired. Some of the music they were playing brought back great memories of my 17, 18-year-old enlistment in the military, and it was just so awesome and magnificent to see our country honoring these veterans, honoring the military that has been around for 250 years, and having a president and a leadership and a body of government that now appreciates those that serve, and that will allow us to highlight those that have served so that we can have a better country and continue in what I hope will be another 250 years.
That's wonderful. Give us a little bit of a highlight of your service, Douglas.
Well, I'd be happy to. You know, I joined the military at the age of 17 years old. I came from a pretty stringent, tough background. We didn't have a lot of resources or money to pay for college. So I hooked up with a recruiter, and they gave me $17,000 as a plan if I joined the Army for 2.5 years in something called the infantry. I really wasn't understanding what infantry was. I just knew it was related to weaponry. I joined the infantry at the age of 17, and 6 months later, I was in Operation Desert Storm. I joined in June 30th, 1990, and 32 days later, Iraq invaded Kuwait, and Saddam had committed atrocities that we hadn't seen since World War II. So, of course, the American government was called upon to react, and President Bush at that time called us, and I was in Desert Storm 6 months to the day of me joining, and spent about 7.5 months of my life there. It was during this point of my life that my life transformed from being a kid that wanted to join to get college money to becoming a man that was a patriot, someone that honored the Lord, served the Lord, and tried to find a way to make my mark in life and make a contribution, which I've been doing so, and compelled to do so, and I'm trying to honor my calling for the last 30 years.
Wow. How did your faith kick in while you were serving?
You know, I grew up in a very strict Lutheran background. My parents put me in public school as a kid, and I had some behavioral problems because I was going to the inner city Milwaukee public school. Well, because of these behavioral problems, my family combined their resources, and everybody pitched in a little bit to put me in a private school back then, which was Lutheran, because that's our faith background. And we were Missouri Synod, a pretty strict set of the Lutheran schools. I grew up, just with having a background in it, but I wasn't really all in. I was kind of just along for the ride. I didn't really understand it. I wasn't connected to the Lord. I didn't have a relationship. I didn't pray. I didn't have an open line of communication like I did when I was older. But I connected with some people in the military, some other soldiers, some females and males. We would go to church together, and we would have, church service in the middle of the desert out underneath a tank canopy. So it was there that I developed a strong relationship with the Lord, and I called upon the Lord at that time to keep me safe, to guide me, give me direction. And one other thing that was extremely hard on me was I grew up as a pacifist. I grew up listening to Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, the old Vietnam kind of music. The kind of music that was around when I was a kid was Vietnam era, early 70s music as a kid. So I grew up kind of learning that, our body of government was at that time kind of anti-war. We didn't want to repeat the travesties of the Vietnam War that our soldiers have seen. So I grew up in that era. And I really didn't want to fight in a war. It's not something that I was comfortable doing, and I was very apologetic to the Lord for participating in what I, would have considered violence against other humans. So it was a hard time in my life as a 17-year-old, trying to find a way to, relieve that tension. And the Lord and my faith put me together on that path to be able to know sometimes you have to do things that are against your will for the good of mankind. And the Lord guided me 100% through that. And I've remained with him this 100% through my whole life. And, it's a calling. It's a beacon that pulls my nose forward every day. It's a beacon that guides me. And it's a light at the end of this tunnel that we call life that just kind of draws me forward each and every day, Perry.
Wow. When you came out of the service, how would you describe yourself? Were you relieved, angry? What kind of condition were you in when you came out?
I was strong as far as academic and motivated and having a purpose in life. I've always had the Lord with me the entire way, but I was kind of a mess. And the mess was I was in a war when I was 17 years old. I saw things that I would never want another human being to see. And it was a tremendous sense of guilt that I participated in that because, again, I grew up in an era of pacifism as far as our country was concerned. And we were, taught as kids not to hurt animals, not to hurt a bug. Don't step on a bug outside, let the bug get outside and put him outside. And that's the way I grew up. That's the way my parents taught me, my elders, my teacher. I just kind of grew up in that era in Wisconsin. And I had a very, very tough time dealing with that. So when I came out, I was, strong on the outside. I looked strong. I acted strong. I had this great head on my shoulders, but inside I was, was falling apart. And, I kind of got away from the Lord when I got out the first time. And luckily, I got back into the military, and that kind of guided me forward. And I got to go back to church. And for some reason, I do much better in church services out in the middle of nowhere than I did in the traditional Lutheran sector because they're very conservative. They're pretty, stringent. We follow this strict hymnal and this singing and so forth. And when I was out with other people of different faiths, Protestants and other religions besides Lutheran, I just kind of thrived in that environment. I connected to other people. And then later, I changed my denomination from Lutheran to Christian. And I would say 100%, it was never have been anywhere I could have gone on that journey if it wasn't for the Lord pulling me through.
So how long was your second term in the service?
I stayed in roughly about 20 years for the entire stint, but I had gotten out in 2.5 years was my original contract. And I had thought at this time I was pretty much going to be done with the military because it was hard life. I mean, I was in the infantry. I was traveling at that time in my career. I'd already been to 4 continents, 17 countries, just in 2.5 years, fought in the war and been living in Europe and just, traveling the globe, always on the go, didn't sleep much at that time. So I had gotten out, and within a month of being out, I decided to go back in. I just missed my fellow brothers and sisters and my team, my home. I'd gotten away. I tried to go to college and I just didn't fit in. It wasn't the place I belonged. I was so much more advanced in my methodology and my mentality of getting things done in life. I wasn't there to party. I didn't want to go drink. I didn't want to go, do what you would do, the traditional things in college. I was a person that was used to working 18-hour days, 7 days a week. And I decided to join the Army National Guard because they were offering scholarships. And by the grace of God, he directed me to Texas Christian University, where I received a full scholarship to have my college education paid for. And what was great about this for a kid at this time, I was only about 19, 20 years old, is that I was able to go to college full time and I was able to serve in the military, what I would call full time. It was at least 40 hours a week. So going to college full time and doing my work full time, it was just something that I was compelled to do. I was busy every moment of the day, just like I was when I was in the military.
That's a beautiful story, Douglas. So you're out, and how in the world did you become a Corvette dealer?
Great question, Perry. Great question. It's like this, it's these, like I just mentioned, the calling, it's like certain things in life that you're compelled to do. And the first thing was my uncle was a Vietnam veteran. He was an accountant he wasn't an infantry or armor. He was an accountant in the Vietnam War era. And when I was a kid, he had a 1979 silver Corvette. And when I was about 8, 9, 10 years old, somewhere in that era of my life, he pulled up to my grandma's house one day in this Corvette he had bought, and he was the epiphany of what you would think a true man was. He was a firm believer in Christ. He was guided by biblical principles, and he always lived his life to the best degree and maximized every moment of his life. And the most important thing, he was so respected by everyone in our family. Both sides of my family just thought he was on top of a pedestal, and he just lived his life to the fullest, and I respected this person. So I grew up with that as kind of a symbol of something of what you would call success, because he worked so hard for so many years to save money. And back then it was about $9,000 or $10,000 to buy this car. So I saw him in that, and that was his pride and joy, something he would pull out every summer and drive. So it just stuck in my head. So when I was in the military, in those 2.5 years, I always bought books, and I bought literature, and I subscribed to magazines, and I ingested so much information and periodicals about Corvettes, and I became an expert in Corvettes at the age of 18, 19, 20. And when I got out of the military, I started doing it for a hobby, because like I said, I had all this time, this energy, this momentum, and I started just immersing myself in Corvette literature. I didn't have any money back then. I actually didn't have any money. I was only making about $1,000 a month back then in the military. And when I got out, I didn't have any resources. All my college was being paid for by the military. I started again immersing myself, trying to connect with people in the industry, going to trade shows, not knowing that I was going to be a Corvette dealer, but knowing that it was something that I enjoyed and I love and I could be passionate about. And later in life, these opportunities came, and these journey just enveloped where the Lord pushed me in a direction. I started to connect with people. I was good at it. I enjoyed it. I had given self-sacrifice where I would not give up. If people needed me to help them at 11 o'clock at night, by golly, I get up and I go do it. I was all in for everything I did related to that industry. And that propelled me forward. And later I had an opportunity. When I was working somewhere part-time in the Corvette industry, I had an opportunity to rent a building, very, very small building, humble building with no air conditioning, just an old beat-up warehouse with 3 cars. And I started my business with 3 cars on a credit card at 18% interest.
Oh, boy. Douglas, I got to get you back because I'm out of time, but you're fascinating. I just want to ask you one quick question because I am out of time. How do you think the military is responding now with not only President Trump in the White House, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth? Is it true that enlistments are skyrocketing?
Absolutely. Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, is the quintessential leader, what you would call someone that the people that work in the trenches of the military can respect, they can relate to. I'm on the same bloodline as him. I was a captain in the military, served in 2 war fronts. He served in 3. But something that's unique about Pete Hegseth is that he connects to people at the top, the American people. He's an effective and excellent communicator, a person that's been successful in different endeavors of life besides the military, but he's highly respected by people that do the job day in and day out. So when you take a person that has this charisma, the ability to connect with people at both spectrums, all levels, it just gives you a unique person that can draw people that are compelled to visit, to be with you and to work for you. So you want to work for a leader like this. For the past 4 years, our administration had people that were political leaders that weren't really all in, as I describe it. Pete Hegseth, he dedicates his life to it. This is his calling. This is what he wants to be. He supports the warriors on the ground and the war fighters, and that's why recruiting is at almost an all-time high. We've erased that 40% decline in recruiting, and I think you're going to see the momentum to continue because people are compelled and happy to serve under someone you can respect and someone that has your back.
No, it's wonderful. Douglas, you're fascinating. We'll get you back. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out his website, douglasernest.com. You can check that out. Check out the author of the book, I should say, The Spirit of a True Patriot, the inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest. And there's a picture of the cover of the book on the screen there. You can get that online as well. We'll get you back, Captain. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. God bless you, friend. Stay in there.
God bless you too, sir, and best wishes to you and all your viewers out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.